The presentation of topic investigation of tribotechnical characteristics of epoxy composites using neural networks is presented to you in session. Polymer composites materials are used in various industries, mechanical engineering, constructions, and aviation. Composite materials are progressively used in critical elements of aircraft. The modern technologies of creating polymer composites, including epoxy composites, is aimed at studying methods of controlled directed changes in the material structure parameters. The latter, in the most cases, determine the physical, mechanical, and operational characteristics of epoxy composites. Method of experimental studies are often complicated and expensive. In particular, with a large amount of experimental data, they need to be organized to find the dependence that most accurately approximated them. So in the presence of experimental data, it is advisable to use machine learning methods that solve such problem with great accuracy. Machine learning methods are capable on analyzing data and learning from them. The aim of this investigation is to study the materials at a different load of plasticized epoxy composites under different conditions, namely coefficient of friction, linear wear rate, and the temperature in the friction zone using the neural networks. Next slide. The parameters of the coefficients of friction, linear wear rate, and the temperature in the friction zone of polymer should be produced by algorithm of supervised learning, that is neural network. A neural network, NN, is one of the machine learning algorithms where the computer learns to solve different problems by analyzing examples of training dates. They can also predict new data that the system has not seen. Here you can see biological neural network. So our brain is constructed from hundreds of billions of neurons. Neurons constantly collect information from the that we perceive and propagate in through the entire brain. So each neuron communicates with other via axon and synapse in order to proceed the received data and then perform some actions. This figure shows a comparison of biological and artificial neuron. So neural networks are the collection of neurons connected to each other in order to create the neural network. To solve a specific problem, it is necessary to choose how to connect neurons and the parameters of the connection weight. The structure of the neural networks is closely related to use of the learning algorithm. Single layer feed-forward network and multi-layer feed-forward network. In this case, the case takes teachers' participation as the knowledge presented in the form of input-output couples. A network with uncontrolled learning cannot know to connect answer to each sample of the training sample. In the mixed case, the part of the weight is defined by controlled learning, while the other is obtained when the network is self-learning. The coefficient of friction, linear wear rate, and temperature in the friction zone are produced by machine learning methods according to the experimental data received in paper by Stuchlyak-Petrov. During learning, the data set is divided into two unequal parts, learning and test samples. As you see 80% of samples are randomly selected from the training sample from all experimental data, and 20% are left to assess the quality of prediction. It is important that the point in figures are located quite close to the bisector of the first coordinate angle, which indicate the consistency of the predicted and experimented data. Here we see the dependence of the experimental data of the tribotechnical characteristics of materials and temperature in the friction zone on the predicted one obtained by the neural network method is shown here. We see here dependencies of tribotechnical characteristics of materials and temperature in the friction zone on load in figure. Here we see dependence of temperature in the friction zone of epoxy coating on load. On this slide, the diagrams of residual values of composites filled with plasticized polymer, respectively, the friction coefficient, linear wear intensity, and temperature in the friction zone as shown in this slide. Here we see diagram of residential temperature value in the friction zone. This slide, you see the names of network, algorithm of learning, error function, function of hidden activation, function of output activation, for coefficient on friction, linear wear intensity, and temperature values in the friction zone. Also, in this study, the loss function was chosen as the mean squared error MSE. In general, method selection and data set are important to obtain good prediction results. Also, method of controlled learning using show better results than the method of uncontrolled learning. Thank you for attention.